To victory over the principal legislative goal of the radical feminists, and that was the Equal Rights Amendment. She killed that in the 1980s. And when Ronald Reagan published his diaries, Reagan commended her and called her plan to kill it, which evidently happened. She called it a brilliant plan, and it was indeed. Ms. Schlafly is America's best-known advocate of the honorable role of the full-time homemaker. And the mother of 6 children. She was the 1992 Illinois Mother of the Year. So she does have her credentials to be here with us this evening. I don't think I could put it any better than what George Gilder had to say about her when he was writing a book. He wrote, "When the histories of this era are seriously written, Phyllis Schlafly will take her place amongst the tiny number of leaders who make a decisive, permanent difference. She changed the political landscape of her country. In fact, by the measure of the odds she faced and overcame, Schlafly's achievement excels all the others." So we are very honored, and I would encourage you to join me in welcoming Phyllis Schlafly.
Nick, and good evening, friends. I'm so excited that there are so many people who come out on a cold night to hear what's the matter with feminism. There are not many people who are willing to talk about feminism. I was hoping that the students in the Women's Studies department would come tonight so they could hear another view. But in any event, I'm glad to have an audience of people who are willing to hear a view that there may possibly be some innate differences between men and women. You know, that view is apparently not tolerable in Harvard. They got rid of Larry Summers, the president, because he dared to suggest that there should be research on this topic. And, you know, the feminists don't want to have research that might produce evidence that is contrary to their ideology. I'm no particular admirer of Larry Summers. He's a big pal of Bill Clinton, who was an appointee of Bill Clinton. But nevertheless, they got rid of him and then humiliated him further when the Board of Regents of the Universities of California withdrew their invitation. So I feel very privileged that I have the opportunity to express some views that are not tolerated somewhere else. So thanks a lot for coming out tonight. Now let me say that feminism is a word that has no statutory definition. You can't look in a law book and find out what a feminist is. It doesn't really help you a whole lot even to look in the dictionary. And anybody here can call yourself a feminist and define it any way you want. But when I use the term, I use it as it is used by the principal advocates of what was called the women's liberation movement and now is called the feminist movement. People like Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, the heads of National Organization for Women, and so forth. And they have very precise meanings for the word feminist, and that is the way I use it. The fundamental problem with their ideology is that they look upon women in the United States as an oppressed minority. They think women are treated as second-class citizens. They deplore our so-called patriarchal society. They wake up in the morning with a chip on their shoulder. And it is really very sad that when the young women come out of high schools and enter college, they are taught by their professors that the world is against you. America doesn't treat women right. You probably will not get paid what you ought to be paid. If you get married, your husband will probably beat you up. And it's really a tragic night for Americans. Now, I come from the point of view that I think the most fortunate class of people who ever lived on the face of the earth is the American woman. She has the most opportunities, the most freedoms, the most joys and privileges and whatever. And when you compare it to with the way people are treated in many other countries in the world, you can see that we are far ahead. And it's not just something that has happened in the last few years since the feminist movement came onto the scene. Those of you who've taken political science no doubt read the works of Alexis de Tocqueville, the French commentator who traveled our country in the 1830s, and he wrote, "I have nowhere seen women occupying a loftier position, and if I were asked to what the singular prosperity and growing strength of Americans ought mainly to be attributed, I should reply to the superiority of their women." So I think it's always been that way. And it's extremely unfortunate if you wake up in the morning with a chip on your shoulder. Now, the feminist movement tries to tell women that they're deprived of all these exciting men's jobs. So I think I should tell the young women here that when I graduated from high school, my parents made me desire a college education, but had no money to pay for it. And I went to work on my 18th birthday as a gunner, firing machine guns and rifles in the largest ammunition plant in the world. I fired them to test the ammunition before it was accepted by the government during World War II. 30 and 50 caliber ammunition. I did all the tests, the velocity, the penetration, the hang fire, the accuracy, and all the tests, and even took apart the misfires in the laboratory to see what happened if they didn't go off. So that indeed was a man's job. I worked a 48-hour week on the night shift, half the time 4 to midnight, and the other half midnight to 8 in the morning, and went to school in the morning. And I must say, I'm at a loss to know what most college students do with all their time, since I was carrying a full load while I was working a 48-hour week manual labor job. Now, the feminists broke into the public view in this country with great support of the media in the early 1970s. And their goal, as Nick mentioned, was to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, which was just coming out of Congress. And they had 10 years to sell it, and they did not sell it to the American people. Those of you here may know that Illinois was the front line in that battle. In order to change the Constitution, you have to have a 2/3 vote in both houses of Congress, and then you have to have 38 states. And Illinois had to vote on this every year for 10 years, from 1972 to 1982, and they never got it. And when you look back on it, you can see that the number one reason was that they didn't have any argument. They tried to paint women as oppressed. They told women that this amendment would put them into the Constitution. Well, that's a big lie in itself, because men are not in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't talk about men or women. It uses all sex-neutral words: we the people, person, inhabitant, citizen, president, senator, representative. There's nothing about men or women. From the day the Constitution was adopted, women have every constitutional right that men have because there was no distinction made in the Constitution. So that was a lie, and to say that it would put women in the Constitution. And anyway, the word women was not in the amendment. The word was sex, and it would put sex in the Constitution. And the first thing it would have done would have been to make every law sex neutral. Now, you young people are fortunate to live in the post-Reagan era when we do not have a military draft. But I can tell you, in 1972, the draft was a very real sword hanging over the head of every young man in this country. And I had sons and daughters about that age, 18 to 24 in those years. And my daughters thought this was the craziest thing they ever heard. You're going to tell me